Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation. Today we have a presentation in collaboration with the Financial Wellness Program and Undocumented Student Program. My name is Yasleen Alonso. I'm the Graduate Counselor Intern at FWP, and I also lead the initiative for USP Coaching Hours along with Ricardo. So we're going to go ahead and do introductions, and then we'll talk about the presentation.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. As Yasleen mentioned, I work with her. I'm part of the Undocumented Student Program. I'm the liaison between us and Financial Wellness Program. My name is Ricardo Ramirez. I'm a fourth year studying psychology, and we hope you enjoy this presentation.
Justin, you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go for it. Hi, everyone. My name is Jasmine Weiss. I am a peer coach at UCLA's Financial Wellness Program, and I'm excited to be here.
And I'm Catherine. I serve as social media and marketing peer for the Financial Wellness Program, and I'm honored to be here as an ally to all undocumented folks who are looking for more financial resources during this time.
Hi, everyone. I'm Charles Liu. I'm the Research and Assessment Peer Coach for Financial Wellness Program. And so what Financial Wellness Program does is, just to give a little gist about what we do, is that our goal is to increase the financial literacy for all of students across UCLA and give them the ability to proactively manage their finances and take better control of their life. Finances, we believe, is a big part. So we offer three resources that are very easy to access for students across UCLA. Our three resources include a online learning module where you could go online, if you don't want to talk with anyone, you could just go online and learn all these different resources and these different knowledge about finances and literacy through that module. Then we have workshops such as we have today. This workshop, anyone, any department or any organization can request it, and we'll come over and present to you guys about what topics you guys want to talk about. Finances cover like a lot of different subjects. That includes like budgeting, it includes how to handle your credit, how to manage your taxes, all that and more. We deal with different types of finances, investing as well. That's a big portion of like what's happening during this right now. And finally, our last resource that we offer is one-on-one peer coaches. So if you ever want to, you can make an appointment with us and we can schedule you, and our well-trained peer coaches will be able to walk you through with any financial questions or financial literacies that you may want to know about.
I do want to also have Maya. Maya, if you can also present yourself. He will be sharing later on part of his personal experience.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Swami Hernandez. I'm a third-year student entrepreneur. I'm also part of the USP staff. I do social media marketing for them. And yeah, I'm excited to share my experience today, and thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you all for your introductions. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the presentation. Let me see if I can figure this out first. Okay. There we go. Okay, so what to expect out of this presentation. We've broken it up into two parts: how to navigate through the recession in the present and how to move forward in the future. So for the present portion, we are going to talk about what liquidity is and how it can help you, elements to be aware of for your financial security, how to manage your money as of now, and any California relief programs that are available to undocumented folks. We're also going to touch on how to deal with unemployment and what you can do to succeed. We will give you some side hustle ideas, and this is where Maya will talk about his experience and currently any food security options that are out there available for you all. And in the second portion of the presentation, we're going to talk about how you can start saving and how it can benefit you in the future, how to decide what your priorities are financially. So should you start saving? Should you pay down debt? Should you invest? We're going to talk about all of this. And lastly, we're going to talk about how you can invest your money as an undocumented person, which it is possible. And then we'll just briefly give a brief summary at the end. Okay. So what can you do in the present? We are going to have Jasmine explain the concept of liquidity.
Thank you, Yasleen. So liquidity is a pretty important concept to understand when it comes to managing your finances, and especially when it comes to investing. It's a term that can confuse people, but basically liquidity just means how easily is something converted to cash. So there's an acronym that people use called CAMPS, and it sort of goes in order from most liquid things to least liquid things. So cash is obviously as liquid as you can get. It's cold, hard cash. There's no conversion. There's things like marketable securities and accounts receivable, and they can be converted, but a little less quickly than if you just had cash. Then you have things like stocks, and because you need to buy and sell them on the market, there's no guarantee that someone will buy or sell something like when you need them to, so they're less liquid. And then as least liquid as you can get is something like real estate or fine art. It might have a lot of value, but if you are in need of cash sooner than later, it might be hard to find a buyer quickly. And this is an especially important concept when you're considering having an emergency fund. When you have an emergency fund, you want to have it in liquid assets, because it stands for, like, if there's an emergency, you don't want to have that money in the stock market where you need to pull it out and wait a few days. If there's an emergency where you need money tomorrow or right now, you want to have it in some type of liquid asset. And when it comes to investing, liquidity is an important concept as well, but it tends to confuse people. But all you really need to understand is that it just means how easily something is converted to cash. So the most liquid thing that you can have is just cold hard cash, like dollar bills in your hand.
So really quick, I'm sorry for the interruption. We will be having a few folks joining in right now, actually.
Awesome. Okay.
We can just give them a few seconds.
Are they in the waiting room?
I don't know. I just seen their email right now, and they should be logging in right now.
Okay.
Oh, if not, we can continue in like the next 30 seconds.
Okay. We'll just go ahead and proceed, and then we'll welcome them when they come in.
Sure.
Ricardo, if you can give us a little bit insight into the elements of financial security.
Yes. So the elements of the financial security are basically broken down into 4 parts. First one being your income stability. So this is any current jobs, any side hustles, any relief funds or UC private grants that you're eligible for to apply for. So that being number 1. Number 2 is being cash savings. So these are like any savings that you can have in that sock drawer, in that jacket that you have in your closet that you just keep putting money. And it's always a good idea to have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses or cost of living, just because you never know when you might need like cardhold cash, or you might run into an emergency that requires you to get this that requires you to have some type of aid so you can pay off anything that's at the moment in need of paying off. Also, having access to your credit. So websites like creditkarma.com and creditsame.com are very good websites that can provide you with your own credit report. And this is accessible once a year, and it's free for every once a year. And then it's basically you will see your credit report, in which would list all your expenses under your credit. And it's just always good to keep track of that, as you can see how your credit is building, if there's any fraud on it, and if you do ever detect fraud or like some type of purchase that you never made, or something under that just looks suspicious, you can always from there on, you can always reach out to the credit bureaus and see what happened, and if possible, file a fraud complaint. And then moving on to number 4, additional resources for undocumented folks that are eligible for My Health LA, for example. It's a organization that connects undocumented folks to medical services. It's not a health plan. These are more services that are based for low income, and these are free for those who may not have a health plan. And like I mentioned before, these are programs provided through community clinics, organizations. And moving on to contacting your employer for unemployment or work benefits. If you are eligible for work benefits, we definitely, and you have been laid off or furloughed, sorry, you definitely can apply and for unemployment. Luckily, here in the state of California, you are eligible for unemployment so long as your EAD, so your employment authorization card is valid, and this will not be counted against you in the new public charge regulation. So yeah, and then I'll go ahead and pass it on.
Okay, so we just wanted to give you some tips on managing your money, but we want to be cognizant that like you yourself are probably like the person who knows best how to handle your own situation. You've done so with the best that you can all your entire life, and so you completely have it in you to get past these times, especially if they're hard for you. But and we know that. We just wanted to give a few tips to maybe give some direction or some insight. So we pulled a model from Access Connects, which is the Center for Education and Financial Capability, and they suggested four different points. So I'm just gonna walk us through them. One, know where you stand. So this means taking a real hard look at all of your money, whether this be in your checkings account, savings account, how much debt you currently have, how much cash you have, the income that's coming in, and trying to do your best to stabilize your cash flow. Like Ricardo touched on, apply for unemployment if you are eligible. And this is focusing on mostly your income, whether you work part-time, full-time, whether you have money that you're borrowing from family or friends, or any student loans that are coming in. 3, try to cut down where you can. So there's 2 points under this one. So for one, we recommend repaying your debt later. So that's, you're gonna see that twice on the slide because that's like a really highly important point. We know the burden and the financial stress that debt can kind of have on a person, but even so, it's one of those things that when we separate our wants from our needs, we kind of want to repay debt as soon as possible, but it's not a need so much as maybe food, shelter, and things like that. And then 2, to limit your cash outflow on unessentials. So if you take a look at all your regular payments, maybe there will be some subscriptions or memberships that are no longer necessary, such as the gym, which we can't access during stay-at-home orders, and other things that you might be able to cut down. And just taking a look at them, because sometimes we might forget that we're paying them when we're not actually using them anymore. And then finally, to check in with your support system and kind of build that up. And this is about emotional and professional support. See who's in your corner, who can have your back when you don't want to borrow loans from creditors. I know coming from an immigrant family, a lot of times my parents have steered away from banks and financial institutions and actually borrowed money from family instead because they might have been charged lower interest rates. So if you take a look at the worksheet from Access Next, it's just going to format all of those things that we iterated here. And I think kind of going through that would be a great way to take a moment and take a step back and look at your financial situation holistically in order to best manage your money. So I'm going to pass it off to Yasleen.
All right, thank you, Kat. So what can you do currently with your money and income? So the first thing you can do is, like Kat was saying, you want to be able to cover your basic expenses, so your food, your bills, your housing. And once you have that covered, step 2 is to, create an emergency fund or start a savings account if you don't have one. Third is pay down your debt. If you have any debt, definitely that is important, but if it's mostly important to start that savings fund first, because if you're just paying down debt, which sounds great at the moment, but you don't have any savings afterwards, then you're just in this horrible cycle that you can't get out of. So once you have your savings account, once you're able to pay down your debt, then you can start thinking about investing in money. So there are 2 options here. So the first one is a high yield savings account. So typically these have higher APR rates than of traditional savings accounts. So an option would be Marcus.com, Ally.com. The second would be certificates of deposit. And so you can also look into Marcus.com and Capital One. And you can actually also invest in stocks. So anyone with an ITIN or DACA social security number, as well as a passport from country of citizenship, can actually open a brokerage account in the US. So brokerage accounts, there are a lot of them, but you can start off by looking at Ameritrade, Wealth Trade, E-Trade, Merrill Edge. These are really good starting places because they have low maintenance and trade fees. And you can also start looking into a low risk index fund or ETF. So I know we have someone who joined us. So if you have any questions, feel free to, say something, unmute yourself, or drop the question in the chat box. Okay. Kat, you're on mute.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Okay, so regarding what to do about employment. Earlier we mentioned your informal network, but you can reach out to both your informal and professional network to see if anyone knows about any virtual jobs that are hiring right now. We recommend you to start with the UCLA Alumni Network. And we just say virtual jobs because given the circumstances, they are the safest. But we'll also be getting to other types of jobs too. There's a lot of virtual interviews that are happening right now, and they are just going to have a lot of the same features as in-person interviews. And if you've lost your job, there are a lot of really fun programs that are available to undocumented folks specifically. And so we'll be sending this slide out, and you can see where the words relief funds are highlighted. There's going to be a lot of resources included in there that you can check and apply for. We want to recommend that you stay motivated and keep on applying for jobs and continuously update your resume. The Career Center is a great resource. And a few tips that we've noted for looking for remote work are to try to narrow your search and just like find something that suits your specialty, your region, and try to target remote work again. There's going to be jobs that offer hazard pay, which is just going to be increased from your regular minimum wage because given like the dangers that they recognize. And so if you can't get virtual jobs, we would really recommend ones that at least pay hazard pay instead of just minimum wage. On the next slide, we've put a long list of types of examples of jobs that a lot of people are working in the midst of COVID-19. So just to read some out loud, some people are working as online tutors, translators, food delivery drivers for companies like Uber Eats, Grubhub, bloggers, social media representatives. And then we listed 5 great websites where you can look up jobs. And then on the next slide, we've listed a few additional job resources. Some newsletters that list a lot of different job offers. And these are some websites that will track hiring opportunities. Number 6, we have a virtual career fair. And then finally, number 7 is Jumpstart, which is an internship resume book. So we really recommend checking all of these out. And again, the slides will be sent out. So links will all be included that you can click.
Hi everyone. So we're just going to talk a little bit about something that every Undocuway student and any student across UCLA can do, and that's start an entrepreneurship. So kind of like about how to start a business and all that. So it's really simple to start a business. If you got a great idea, put that into work. So you would just need a valid social security number or your ITIN, your individual tax income number, and you'll be applying for your EIN, also known as your employer identification number. So when you write a business plan, make sure that you have your business plan. You would of course need a team to work on. So make sure, even though you're the leader of the team, you always need to work with a team to start this business. And you would need to have a clear set of goals that you have in mind. What's the purpose of your product or item that you are trying to start this business with? Who are you trying to appeal this to? And why do you want these people to buy your products? So these are very important concepts to keep in mind when writing a business plan. Another thing is financing your business. You gotta make sure there are ways that, to get funding for your business. Oftentimes to start off a business, you'll need at least like $10,000 or so. That's fine. There are places you can go get that. Business loans offer that. Credit and banks offer entrepreneurship loans for you guys. Investors, and there are connections with people that you can gain these investors. Grant money. If you look at this website, Immigrants Rising. This website will help you with gaining grants for your entrepreneurship idea. You need to think about also the location. Is there permits that I need? For example, I'm selling a food product. I would need proper food permits. There comes with fees, where you have your shipping or your resources, eligibility and licensing to make sure that you have the proper licensing to sell this product. And finally, marketing and promotion, social media. You'll need to post it all over so you get widespread it so people will be interested in your products. Flyering, partnerships, and creativity. Now there are also 2 resources on at UCLA. They are known as Bruin Entrepreneurs and Startup Labs. UCLA is the other one. Both of these resources can help you with helping you create your ideas, flourish them, and connecting you with partners and investors. The link will be in the description box below. Thanks. So this part, I'm going to pass it off and introduce it to Maya, who is an expert and who also has his own entrepreneur business.
Right. Thank you so much. Yeah, like you mentioned, my name is Swami Hernandez, and I'm gonna just reiterate, I'm a 3rd year studying here at UCLA. I'm also undocumented. I was born in Toluca, Mexico, and I don't have DACA. So yeah, so that's sort of like a little background on me. I own a photo and video business. I named it Maya Films because that's usually like the name that I go by. And in high school when I used to do like some vlogging, that's what people would call me. But ultimately, I just want to say that it all started with being rejected at first. When I was in high school, I really wanted to pursue like drawing. I wanted to pursue art, something along the arts. But my AP teacher told me I wasn't good enough, and I took it to heart, and it hurt at that time. But I'm always a firm believer that whenever a door closes, another door opens. So then I looked into other ways of doing art, and then I found photography, the photography club. I enjoyed it, and I started very early on. I started in 2012, actually. And yeah, right here you can see a little bit about like my website. It's always linked. These are just some of the work that I've done. I've done some graduation shoots. I've done some videos. I've done behind the scenes product. But ultimately, yeah, like I said, I mean, it started as a hobby. But what really motivated me to really take action on this idea of making this into something that I could get paid for was the fact that in my second year when I was living at UCLA, I had to pay one of my summer courses, and at that time, like my family was facing like some financial difficulties, so they weren't really somebody that I could reach out to. So what I decided to do is, I was always interested. I would always see Start of UCLA, the Brain Entrepreneurs. So I remember I just booked a consulting meeting with the Start of UCLA executive director. Her name is Deanna, and I told her that I have photography skills, and this is what I want to do. How can I make some money out of this? And she ultimately was very friendly to me, and she really motivated me to not only move forward, but she also gave me ideas to outreach my services on campus. So I mean, my business is still new. It's a freelance business. The whole goal of my business is to help um, students, professionals, and businesses grow their network by providing videography services to them for their website, for their events, and any family events. So I'm there to capture it all, and like I always say, like I think I have the best affordable prices. My prices are always negotiable and whatnot. Yeah, so these are some of my graduation photos that I shot last year on campus. And I mean, I'm no expert or anything, but one of the things the reason why I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship is because I've always been interested in finding a career that combined three of my interests, which were like creativity, business, and mathematics. And I've always, regardless of my status or whatnot, like I've always applied to different programs. Regardless of my major, I've applied to different programs, and that's something that I really want to emphasize. That's the reason why I am where I am today. Like right now, I get like five to 10 clients a month. So right now, like it's going pretty good, but it could always be better. But yeah, I mean, it's always been about growing your network, letting people know that this is what you do and where you want to get to, and really just applying to things. And don't be afraid to go upon your idea. I know the reason why I stalled on my idea, even though I've been taking photos since 2012, was because I was like, oh, I'll wait until I know how to do this, or I'll wait until I know how to do that. But ultimately, I mean, you'll always. I remember that like year after year, I kept telling me, oh yeah, I'll do it next year. I'll do it next year, or I'll do it when I know how to do this. But ultimately, like you'll never be ready. You'll never fully be ready. And I think we live in an industry where if you fall behind, it's a bit harder to get back on it later on. And it's happened like on YouTube and stuff like that. Like the channels that started later, like that started in 2012. They've grown so much. And yeah, I tell people that yeah, I mean, just really tell people that you want to do this and pursue your dreams, regardless of what major you are, and apply to stuff. What really helped me and has helped me all throughout, has been like being involved on campus. I was involved in like the Brain Entrepreneurs. I was involved in like Startup UCLA, and I've also been part of like the 3-day startup at Startup UCLA. So it's a program where student entrepreneurs apply and they get to talk to other entrepreneurs on campus. And through a 3-day event, you not only talk to like-minded people, but you get to see like the process of getting an idea, building a team, and then executing it towards investors. And yeah, I mean, in my freshman year, I was also part of an AT&T fellowship program. And I remember I didn't want to apply because, well, for one, they wanted a film major, and for two, they wanted like a 3.6 GPA. And I wasn't gonna apply, but you know, like I can't stress this enough. Just apply. You know, you never know who's gonna be there. And you know, thankfully, I got in, and through there, I found a mentor that was doing like some of the things that I want to do. And yeah, through that, like he's helped me be like a production assistant, and just really helped me really expand my network, because ultimately, like that's the most important thing about having a business, is that the more people you know, the better it is for you to expand your horizons. And you know, I've heard this. I listen to a lot of like motivational people and business people on YouTube, and they say like, you know, the person that you're targeting is not your friend, is not your friend's friend, but it's going to be your friend's friend. So I really take that to heart. Whenever I go anywhere, I always, you know, I always promote myself. I always say, yeah, I own a photo video business. You know, some people might not click it, and that's okay with me. You know, I know that one person's going to click it, and once a person clicks it, then, you know, I kind of go from there. But yeah, I mean, yeah, just don't be afraid. If you have a hobby, something that you enjoy, something that you know, you don't mind doing on the side, and you don't mind getting paid for it, and you're good at it, go for it. Don't be afraid. And even, you know, even though like you might not have like DACA, or you might not have like AB 540, like don't let anything stop you. You know, sometimes I think it's when we hit rock bottom, that's when we start looking for ways to get out of it. But I think that right now is the best time to do it, especially with this whole COVID thing. I think if you want to learn new skills and whatnot, I think it's the best time to do it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's all for me. You know, be motivated, stay motivated. I stand by that, and my brand stands by that. And I hope that in a couple of years, you know, my services are worldwide, and yeah, I continue to grow, and I continue to, yeah, to kick ass as an undocumented student, and continue to defy any circumstance that is placed on me in stereotypes. But yeah, the sky's the limit, you know. And yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you, Maya, for sharing your story and for sharing how you got started. This is really awesome. You know, lovely pictures. I wish I could take pictures like that, but you know, maybe in the future. And so as we said in the beginning, you will get these slides, and we'll also send the additional links in the follow-up email, including Maya's work portfolio.
Yeah, and if anybody out there has any questions, feel free to contact me either on my Instagram, on my email, or anything. I'm always willing to help somebody out. And obviously there's always things to learn. But you know, the great thing about, I want to be a great leader, and the way I define a great leader is, you know, great leaders create other leaders. They don't create followers. So if I can do that, and I can assist any of you, just let me know, reach out to me, and we'll work something out.
So thank you, Maya. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and continue our presentation. So currently there are some relief funds in California. As some of you might have heard, the state of California did release a disaster relief assistance for immigrants. And it started this on Monday, and it is a first come, first serve. So funds will run out. So if you haven't done so, please apply for this if you do qualify. It is a one-time state funded of $500 per adults, and the maximum is $1,000 per household. You do have to be over 18 years. You qualify if you were ineligible for federal assistance, such as the federal stimulus checks and unemployment benefits. And you have to be able to demonstrate financial difficulty. We have uploaded the link or posted the link onto this slide from the state of California. You do have to contact your county. It might look different. So if you haven't done so, please, and you know that you qualify, go ahead and go on this website to, you know, start contacting your county. And the second is student loans. Currently, you know, if you are AB 540 eligible, you do qualify for the Dream Loan. If you did at some point get offered that during this year, and you know that you might need some sort of money, we highly recommend that you take out the loan. And I get it, taking out loans can be really stressful and can cause anxiety. But just keep in mind that the Dream Loan does have a lower interest rate than credit cards. And so if you want to learn more about the Dream Loan, we have provided a website from Heartland. This is basically the lender that tends to give out that loan. If you also want to talk more about it to a counselor, we've also included the link. They are by last name. There are 3 of them. So this website will tell you who you need to contact. And then there are actually other private loans that undocumented students are eligible for. So if at some point you do take out a private loan, it's best to ask your servicer for options, whether you can delay payments or at least ask for forbearance. It really does depend. And one note thing is, like, if you have taken out the Dream Loan, the UC system has mirrored what the federal California, the CARE Act has mirrored. So if you did take out a private loan from the university or a Dream Loan, you don't have to make payments up until September 30th. So that's something to keep in mind. And then I'll pass it off to Ricardo to talk about the second half of the slide.
Thank you, Yasleen. And so just moving along, rent, for example, so California Executive Order number 2820, it was signed by the governor of California, Newsom. And basically this allowed for counties and cities to consider pausing rent payments. For example, a 60-day rent-free payment. So you don't have to make any payments due to how COVID-19 has potentially affected people's finances, such as not being able to get paid. For example, and then an example would be LA County's temporary eviction moratorium and rent freeze. This is run from March 4th through June 30th, and this is on a monthly base-to-base, so this can get extended. And basically is just how I had mentioned earlier, it's just so you're not able, landlords are not able to interest you or give you late fee penalties or evict you, and are actually supposed to create a 12-month payment plan if should you miss out on paying rent for a month or 2 months or 3 months. And so, yeah, this is basically, these are some of the executive actions that have been passed in the state of California, and this goes based on your state and your county's policies. And then also we do want to mention, if you ever do run into some trouble, which a landlord is harassing you or is threatening you with, such as evicting you, there are organizations that can help you out, such as Chidla, that can help you out and connect you to the right legal services to prevent that from happening. Moving along to credit, so just earlier how we had mentioned, credit, it's good to have, just because the better credit you have, the more loans you're able to take out. And understandably, it's loans can be in like a topic that is something that you might not want to take out, or might be your last option to consider taking out. But it's always good to have, because you never know when you might need that money. And as we mentioned before, there are various websites that can provide you with information on credit cards and let you know which credit cards have low interest fees. And these are some examples of some credit cards that you are able to apply for. Definitely, it just depends on their requirements and eligibility. And with that said, we can move on.
I have a few quick things to add before we move on. As Ashley mentioned about the disaster relief assistance, there's 3 that are particularly relevant in Los Angeles. So there's the CURLA, which is Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. They're providing DRAI. There's also Asian Americans Advancing Justice, and then there's CARECEN, which is Central American Resource Center, which is based in Los Angeles. So I would recommend anyone watching this to go ahead and check out all 3 of them. And You just have to be an undocumented adult, ineligible for federal COVID-19 related aid, and experiencing financial hardship as a result of COVID. And we can move on.
Thank you, Kat, for that.
Okay, so lastly, we're going to talk about like what to do about food security, because that's actually a thing that's pretty prevalent right now in the COVID situation, since a lot of places are closed and income's a bit tight. We understand that. So here are a list of options is that UCLA, they understand that we offer meal vouchers for students. You can request them at from our ECRT team, the Economic Crisis Response Team, and they'll kind of see what your financial situation is like, what they can offer you, and offer you meal vouchers if you're still at UCLA. You can find some at your local food banks around the place. They're still offering and they're still open for people, and they're giving out for it. Local and some local nonprofit organizations still offer food as well. So be sure to check those out. Right here, you'll also find our food securities card along where to find them. One important one that I will mention is the CalFresh initiative. So, and the meal vouchers are the important ones on these ones. So be sure to check these out. But without further ado, we'll move on to our next one. And now we're going to talk about, I'm going to introduce this to Jasmine. We're going to talk about what to do in the future.
Thank you, Charles. So yeah, we spent our first half of the presentation talking about what to do right now, and now we're going to go a little bit into how to prepare for the future. And one of the most important things that we can do, given that life takes unexpected turns sometimes, is to start saving. And what most people recommend is something called an emergency fund. Any strong financial plan should include an emergency fund. And the first step to building one is to understand what your monthly expenses are. So this sort of goes hand in hand with making a budget. If you've never built a budget before either, this can sort of kill two birds with one stone. You should just spend a month tracking your expenses and figure out what your basic needs are each month and where your money really needs to go towards. And once you have an idea of those necessities that you need to cover on a month-to-month basis, then you can multiply that by whatever margin you think is best for your fund. If you want 3 months worth, 6 months worth, 9 months worth of basic expenses covered, just multiply that number by your typical expenses in 1 month. And sometimes that might seem like a lot, and I know that people get put off because they're like, okay, well, I don't really have like $3,000 in an emergency to put in an emergency fund, and that's okay. You can sort of treat it like any other account that you're trying to build, and just build it over time. You don't need that money tomorrow. The most important thing is getting started, and I think one successful way of approaching it is to sort of set up like automatic deposits and just treat it like any other bill you have to pay. So just pretend that you have this bill that's called emergency fund, and each month you're going to contribute this amount. And if you do it that way, you'll find that sooner than later, before you know it, you will have a healthy emergency fund built up. And once you're at that point, you can decide to either, add to it or find another way to use your money, such as pay down debt or invest it. And my final thing regarding emergency funds goes back to this concept of liquidity that we've talked about. You want your emergency fund in relatively liquid assets, because it is inherently for something like an emergency. You want to be able to access that money quickly. At the same time, because we know that things like inflation eat into our purchasing power, we want to try to get the best rate of return we can while keeping our money in a liquid asset. And as we mentioned before, liquidity is how quickly something can be converted to cash. So a great option to accomplish both of these goals is to put your money in something like a money market account or a high interest savings account. They are almost as liquid as cash, yet they offer higher rates of return than what you would get at your typical bank. So you will be sort of fighting against inflation, but you'll still be able to pull out that cash quickly if needed. And once you start saving, then we can go on to the next slide, picking priorities. So as we mentioned before, there's sort of this trade-off that people are faced with, which is, I want to save, but I'm also staring down all of this debt. How do I best approach the situation? Everyone's financial situation is different, but in general, I think that balance is key. You want to pay down debt, especially debt that is maybe accumulating really quickly at a high interest rate. But at the same time, as Yasleen mentioned, if you're focusing all of your extra income on paying down debt and not in saving, and some emergency happens and you don't have any savings, you're going to have to put yourself in more debt, and then it becomes this vicious cycle. So moderation is key. There are certain circumstances, if you have this one pesky bill that's rapidly accumulating interest, like you took out a payday loan or something, you really want to aggressively pay it down. That's understandable, but in general, you sort of want to do both. You definitely want to build up a healthy emergency fund, and you also want to do your best to start paying down debt as you can. The sooner you pay off debt, the less interest will accumulate and the more money you'll save in the long run. So it really depends on everyone's personal situation, but you don't want to focus on just one or the other. You might really, really want to build an emergency fund, and that's great, but if you're not paying down debt at all, then you're going to accumulate a lot of interest really rapidly, and you might have been better off sort of doing a mix of both. So in general, I always say that moderation is key. You want to assess your situation and find ways to split up your funds in a way that will best maximize your financial health. And let's say you're in a situation where you are on track to pay down all of your debt. On top of that, you have built up or are working on building up a healthy emergency fund, and now you have some discretionary income. And so now you're not just trying to protect your wealth, you're trying to grow your wealth. And I know investing can definitely be an intimidating topic, which is why we're going to unpack it a little bit. And you can always make an appointment with a coach at our financial wellness program to get into the nitty-gritty of investing if you want to learn more. But basically, if you are a young person, what we recommend is looking at tax-favored investments. If you're not paying taxes, that automatically means more money in your pocket. And there are accounts that do offer tax advantages. One of the big ones is a Roth IRA. If you look into a Roth IRA, it's a great investment choice because even though it's technically saving for retirement, there's tax-free growth. So you're investing through this retirement account and the money grows tax-free, which is a big deal. The reason that happens, a lot of people think it sounds too good to be true, but it's because the government wants to incentivize people for working. So you can only put in money that you've earned. If you have a job and you've made a certain amount of money, you can contribute up to that amount to your Roth IRA. So I always recommend starting with a Roth IRA because you really can't beat tax-free growth. Less taxes equals more money in your pocket. And let's say you're just on a roll, you have your emergency fund, you're paying down your debt, and you've maxed out your Roth IRA, which for 2019, 2020 is going to be a cap of $6,000. And you're like, I really like this investing thing. I want to take it further. I want to keep growing my wealth. Then you can look into opening up a regular taxable investment account with a brokerage firm. And as mentioned before, if you have an individual like taxpayer identification number or your DACA, or you have some type of SSN, you can open a brokerage firm. You don't need to be a U.S. citizen to do so. You just have to make sure that your brokerage firm will work with you. And there are just some key things you want to consider, such as your age, your risk preference, your timeline, and your goals. You also want to look into the different types of funds. Diversification is key when it comes to investing. So you're going to want to look at things like index funds, mutual funds, and ETFs, because those offer built-in diversification. And again, if you want to learn more, you can always feel free to make an appointment with us, and we can definitely take a look at your financial situation and figure out what investment is best for you. And there are also lower risk investments because, people have different risk preferences, and some people don't want their money in the market, and that's understandable. And if that's your situation, you can look into something like we talked about, the emergency fund, like a money market account, high yield savings, and CDs or bonds. These offer lower returns, but they're also safer investments. So it's a great way to still earn a bit of money without the added risk that may come with putting your money in something like the stock market. And this sort of brings us back to a general trade-off that we see, which is risk versus reward. You just want to keep in mind that if something seems like it could be offering a really high rate of return, that probably means it's a generally a riskier investment. And that's okay. You just have to make sure that you can tolerate that risk. So it's just important to keep in mind there's always a trade-off. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And then we've included some resources to learn more about investing, including specific resources for immigrants. And again, you can always make an appointment with us if you want to learn more.
All right, thank you for that, Jasmine. Oh, go ahead, Ricardo.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say thank you for that as well. this does bring our webinar to a conclusion. I don't know, Yaslin, do you want to add anything?
Just that, I know we packed a lot into there, but hopefully what you can get out of is like, currently right now, it's really important to assess your financial situation. First thing you want to do is cover your basic necessities. And then from there, start building your savings account, paying down debt if you have any. We did mention a bit of the relief programs out there that assist undocumented folks. So look into that. And then once you have that covered, like Jasmine was saying, if you want to at some point start investing, we provided those slides here. And if you want to talk more, feel free to make an appointment with us. We are more than happy to walk down with you and see how your financial situation is and where you can, make those changes and create those goals, financial goals that you have for yourself. So that concludes our presentation. We're going to leave some room for questions. If you have any questions, you can just drop them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself.
Overall, I do want to just highlight again Maya's experience as a side hustle and being himself an entrepreneur and documented entrepreneur. Just definitely letting you all know, anyone who's watching this video, that it is possible to do this, to make anything you have a passion for into a business if you want to. Don't let anything stop you. And just like how Maya had mentioned, the sky's the limit.
Okay, so in the chat, Jacqueline asked, can you explain a little bit more about what high yield savings accounts are? So I'm going to leave this one to Charles, our resident expert.
Hi. What high yield savings accounts are basically, you can imagine, so savings accounts you would have your checking account, and then which is your main source of like paying stuff with your debit card, and then you would have your savings accounts. So what savings accounts are basically is like every month or so, you'll get for having money in that account, the banks will give you a very small incremental like interest rates. Probably like if you have $300, you'll probably get like 3 cents a month. And that's probably going to be like 0.03%. So you can imagine how small that percentage is and how little money you're getting. High yield savings accounts work differently. Is it okay if I screen share as well? Yeah, yes. So just to show you what a high yield savings account is right here. High yield savings accounts are basically for having money in their savings account, over time, every month, you'll be gaining more percentage of interest rates. So for example, let's say that you put your savings accounts into something called personal savings, all right? You'll get a 1.3% interest rate. So for example, let's say I put in about $1,000 into it, all right? And then I get about a 1.3% interest rate. That's $13 additional added into my bank account, into my savings account. So as long as you have that money. So high yield savings accounts, they don't charge you higher interest, they give you higher interest, which is a benefit for you for keeping your savings money in that account. Now, of course, some places they'll have like minimum balance, but right here you can find out NerdWallet right here for high yield savings accounts for all the top high yield savings accounts online that you're able to check out right now. So for example, some of them might require a minimum balance of like 1 cent, like a penny. Some of them might require a minimum balance of $100 into this high yield savings account. But NerdWallet, what they do is they rank them. And of course, this resource is also available in the description box in this video below. So that's what we high yield savings accounts are. Did I answer your question, Jacqueline?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, of course.
I have a question about like Roth IRA and 401k. So I was looking into this like a couple of weeks ago because I don't know, I became interested in it, but I correct me if I'm wrong, but don't you need a social security number in order to really start a like a Roth IRA?
So as long as you have like you can use your social security number to start up your 401k. I know some individuals who do have taken advantage of that opportunity, and so as I know unfortunately it's as long as you do have a valid social security number, you would be able to start that up.
Thank you.
So we have a question about explaining a little bit more about high yield savings accounts. This delves more into the investing realm, and investing is not just stocks and bonds. When we talk about investing, it's about money creation and ways to earn additional income. So when we talk about high yield savings accounts, we are basically saying it's a type of investment. It's one of the safest types of investments out there that will earn you returns that are safe. So you can think about this on the X and Y axis, that, you know, on our X axis, we have risk. You know, the farther we go along the X axis, the more risk we'll be taking. And on the Y axis, we'll be having returns. So at the lowest amount, you'll have high yield savings accounts. You know, they'll have the least amount of risk, but the lowest amount of returns. That's pretty much how it works. And so how basically a little bit more on high yield savings accounts is that they're offered by private banks. Generally, like commercial banks, you would see like Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, and all those other banks. They don't usually offer high yield savings accounts. That nerdwallet.com, that's a great resource that we recommend you use to check out high yield savings accounts, and they'll always keep it updated monthly. Every month they'll update it and calculate all into who has the highest percentage to give you back money for having money in that account. So basically high yield savings accounts are like savings accounts, but they give you a more they give you more money, more interest rates. And that interest rates, the higher the interest rate is, the more money you'll be earning comparatively to a commercial bank account. And to kind of like drop in a little bit more information about high yield savings accounts is that they are also influenced a bit, because all banks are influenced by the Federal Reserve, the big bank that creates all the money and the interest rates, and they determine all the rates. So, you know, whenever you hear, like, for example, a couple months ago, like probably about 2-3 months ago, they talked about the Federal Reserve lowering down the rates. Before the whole COVID situation, high yield savings account would yield you 2% interest rate, which is great. So you can imagine that was it like 2%? If you put in $1,000, you have like 2% of that, you get $20 additional dollars to your savings account. But now, because the Federal Reserve rate, they're being lowering down their rates. A lot of these banks are they forecast their rates based off of the Federal Reserve. So when they lower down their rates, high yield savings account lower down their rates. When the Federal Reserve increases their rates, the banks will increase their rates. And this also works towards you. So for example, you would say, like, say, the Federal Reserve the next month increase their rates. Then you can expect your high yield savings accounts to get you more money for it.
Thank you, Charles, for that explanation. And any questions that you may have, Maya, as well? additional questions for Ricardo?
Yeah,
And
I
then
have
if you're
one last
interested in
question.
any of this, you can make an appointment with us. But yeah, Maya.
Yeah, so so I took out the dream loan my first 2 years, and I know that I graduate. I'm gonna graduate next year, and I was just wondering, like, so I have some money saved up, like to start paying it. Would you recommend that I start paying it now, or would you recommend I wait until I graduate and then start paying it then? Like, what would be like the better financial decision? Or what would be like your advice on that?
I can go first, but Yasmin, Charles, feel free to add on. For me, I would recommend you take a look at your personal situation. I think it depends a lot on whether you're in a place where you can like pay off your bills, or if it's better to kind of contribute to emergency savings. We are headed into a recession, I think. So a lot of things are going to get hard for a lot of people. I think if it were me, I would, if I had a stable job, or job perspectives for next year, since I graduate this year, I then I might consider paying it off. But if a lot of people say that you should have like 3 months worth of living expenses first, but that's a lot. So Yasmin, what do you think?
Yeah, so with the dream loan, you are like if you have money and you want to pay them, you can, but just keep in mind that interest isn't accumulating while you're in school, and then after you graduate, you do have that 6-month grace period.
Exactly.
So, you know, if
You
if
don't
you
have
don't
to.
have you technically don't have to start paying them, but I understand the urge to do that. Another thing too is like once you graduate, you do have 2 types of repayment options. So the first one is the standard repayment. You have 10 years, and that's usually a fixed amount of at least $50 a month. So that's automatic. So if you don't choose the other plan, which I'm going to talk about briefly, then you're set to just do the standard repayment plan. And then if you decide to not go with that, there is a second option, which is the income-based repayment plan. So this is based on, I believe, 10% of your discretionary income. So maybe if at some point you find yourself that you don't have a job, your income, your monthly payment for the dream loan will be $0. And so usually you have about 20 years to pay the student your dream loan off. But it just depends. And you can go back and forth as well. It's something that, like we mentioned in the slide, if you want to talk more about it, you can make an appointment with me or with one of their peer coaches, or even
Yeah.
talk to a debt loan counselor, and they will get more into that on those 2 types of repayment plans.
Thank you, Yasmin. I know it looks like we're like really plugging ourselves, but like if you make an appointment with us, we can like take a look at your personal situation and craft out a plan just for you. I like to think of it as like you bring your problems to us and we kind of adopt them and share them and try to look for solutions together. So it's not such a heavy burden anymore.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll make an appointment.
Okay, awesome. Honestly, Yasmin would be the best for all undocumented folks. Like I would recommend her to every single one. I just think she has like a great approach, and is really rooted in empathy and her knowledge. So I would make an
Thank you,
appointment.
Kat. Alrighty. So I'm going to just stop the recording right now.